Welcome to our second channel, More What the Rust. Few things are as polarizing in the old car world as patina. This car, this 54 Chevy, certainly has it. Today I'm going to show you a way to preserve this patina on the cheap, and it works. Even if you don't like patina, if a car you're going to store outside, a parts car or something that looks like this needs to be protected, this is your way to go without spending hundreds of dollars. It's super easy, and I'm going to show you how it looks like before and after. Come along for the ride. I think you're going to find this interesting, even if you're not a patina fan. Let's start by taking a quick look at the car. 1954 Chevy 210. Been outside decades. I don't know how long. But it runs really good, and it's got potential. And it's going to be stored outside for a while before I get to it. So I need to protect this finish. I don't want it to get any worse. It's got rust. It's got what looks like gray primer. I think it's got some white. It's got the original green. And of course, the classic patina fade through, which on this car, I just love it. I think there's a place in the old car hobby for patina, and this car is just unbelievable in its way to show the history that it's had. The car is remarkably consistent in its colors, the green, the red primer, the rust, and the white or gray primer. But it's got to be protected. You know, you can see if I put this outside for any longer, I'm not going to have much to work with when I get to it. So this is the car. That's what the body looks like. The first thing I'm going to do is wash it. I think it's important that the finish is clean so that we're not sealing in dirt and excess rust. So I'm going to start on that now. I would recommend using a power washer for this, for something this dirty. But where I'm at, I don't have a water source for a power washer. And this car has no brakes, and it's stuck in neutral right now. So I would never be able to stop it. So I'm going to have to make do with it here. But I've got plenty of water here in buckets and such with soap. So I'll make it work. I'm not going to worry about the windows. I'm not going to worry about the chrome, although you could put this on chrome. I'm not going to worry about that. It's just going to be the paint component and the rust component of the body. As you can imagine, the car's filthy. But as you look at the washed area, you get an idea of what this is going to look like when it's finished. It's not going to be super glossy, but it is going to have a shine to it. And that's what I'm excited about. I think the shine is going to look really cool. Just wet now from me washing it. But look at the difference. I would rather have the shine than no shine. Just finished washing, and in this heat, it's going to dry fast. One thing I noticed is this is super rough. And I'm not sure I want to put preserver over that roughness. So Christina has highly recommended I hit this with 400. I think I'm going to try it. I have to rewash this. I'm going to try it and see what it does to the finish. I don't want to alter the finish much, but if it took off a little more of that gray primer, I wouldn't be sad. So I'm going to try it on this fender, and we'll see if it makes it better or worse from an appearance perspective. And if it makes it better, I'll do the whole car quick. 400's not hard to use, 400 wet and dry. With a DA, it should finish in no time. But even if you had to do it by hand, it wouldn't take very long. I think it looks a lot better after I've done the 400. Still a little bit wet, so disregard the shine, but I just think it looks a lot better compared to, say, this side. It's just super rough. Looks like the rust is darker when it's rough, a little lighter when it's smooth, and that orangey look is going to look a lot better glossy than this dark look. So I'm going to try this. I haven't done this yet. This is some pretty awesome weathering right there, but it is very rough. I'm going to see what happens when I sand this with 400, and that's going to make my final determination whether I do the whole car. Probably that and this here. I don't like that. Looks like somebody just spray painted over it, but we'll see. Well, I liked it better the way it was with the kind of like rust strips here. Now it looks like spray can marks sideways, which it probably is. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to stay away from the paint as much as I can and just knock down the bumps in the rust, like right here where it's just super bumpy. So that'll make it easier. I don't have to do the whole car, and it'll smooth things out enough to get a little more gloss out of it. So I'm going to take a few minutes to do that, and I'll get back to you. It's getting there. I think it looks a lot better. The raised rust is smoothed out. It's still very dirty, of course. It's got sanding stuff all over it. And I've discovered blue, like right here. I wondered why the interior was painted blue by someone, and there's some more blue. Now that blue looks like it's under the green, but the original color is green, so I can't make sense of it. There's more blue, but as you can see, someone painted the interior blue and went as far as to paint the jambs. Here's the original green where the weather strip was, and someone painted blue after it. I don't know what happened to all the blue on the outside. Look, listen to how those Chevys, this thing is beat up and rusty, and look at that door. Closes like a bank vault. Anyway, I'll get back at it. I was using the 400. Here's a tip for you all. It's not rough enough. I actually switched to 100 because the rust was just too deep. The 400 just was not smoothing it out. So I'm being cheap, and I've only used 2 discs on the entire car. I'm going to try to get away with 2 discs of 100 and 2 of 400 on the whole car. I'm low on discs right now, and I don't want to spend a bunch of money on sanding discs on this thing. Sanding's done. It's blown off. I still need to wash it once. I like how it came out. There's still lots of color. There's green, there's white, there's blue, there's rust. I think this is going to shine real nice. Looks like I need to finish in here. I missed a spot there. I maintain the Rochelle sticker here. Rochelle, I don't know what that says, Enterprise or Service or something. It's an old sticker, so I preserved it. But I think it's going to look good. So a couple of this side shows the color a little bit better in the light. So a couple of missed spots, and I have to sand this filler panel here, and then I'm ready after a quick wash for the application. So I've washed it twice, and it's clean. The water's clear. But this is the look I'm looking for. It's wet right now, but you can see So many different colors coming together. You know, the rust is even a little bit orange when it's wet. We've got here the the green, then we come down to the red, the rust, and then the blue and the white. I mean, it's history. It's showing the history of the car in its paint. And I want to preserve that. And because it's stored outside, I don't want this car getting any worse. So I'm going to let this dry. It should dry pretty quick because it's hot. Then I'm going to wipe it down with alcohol. There's no sense using Prep-Sol on this. It's a lot more expensive than alcohol. And alcohol will do the job for this. But let me show you the product I'm going to use. This is the stuff. These people don't sponsor me or anything like that. I just happened to discover this stuff when looking for ways to preserve paint. This is at Home Depot for 25 bucks for a quart, and half a quart will do a car easily. I mean, I've done a car once with this and it's at least half full. This stuff is designed for eliminating brush marks in oil-based paint. But what I found is it adds a gloss, and a very hard gloss, to paint. It's not super glossy, as you'll see, but it is more glossy than a flat look that this car had before. It's almost going to look, well, you can't really tell yet. It's not going to be as glossy as it is right now, but it's going to be close. It's going to be something like that right there. Like I say, this is drying super fast, so I'll be able to apply this in a short while, and we'll begin to see the results. So now I'm going over the whole car with some alcohol. The rag is staying pretty clean, which is what I was hoping for. But I am picking up a few particles of dirt, which is why I'm doing this. I'm starting with the most important surfaces. The hood and the fenders being number one. Then the sides, the roof, and the trunk. I've taped off the headlight rings, and I've taped off the rain guards. It turns out these rain guards are worth quite a bit of money. You'd never know it, but they are. Okay, the car is dry and it is clean. So now the fun part begins. I'm going to start to mix up the Penetrol and show you how it's applied. There are a couple of ways you can apply this stuff. One is a sponge. I've got one here, and one is a brush. I've got a 3-inch cheapie. I'm actually going to use both. I need the brush for the corners. This car has a ton of trim and corners, particularly around the window. I'm going to use the brush there, and I'm going to attempt the sponge on the larger areas. Now, one thing I know from using this stuff, it runs. Be careful. Make sure you have good light and keep your eye on the rungs. You can correct them. Some people have said you can't. You can, as long as you catch them quick. If it's over 5 minutes or so, they're going to be tough to correct. And you correct them just by going over it again with the brush or the sponge. So I'm going to have to be constantly aware of that, because you don't need a lot. It seems when you start to apply this stuff that you're going to need a lot of it, and you don't, because it'll run. It's pretty hot out still. It's probably around 80. Not the perfect temperature for this, but I think it'll be okay. I've got a fan going. I think it's going to be all right. So I'm going to use this converted milk bottle as a container. I'm just going to pour it in. As you can see, it's got this kind of light brown colored tint, and it smells like varnish. You'd never think that it would do what it's going to do, but it will. So I'm going to make sure I can reach halfway, which I can, standing on this toolbox. So I'm just going to start applying. I'm a little concerned that this sponge might soak up a lot of the product. So I'm going to be careful at first with it. I want to apply it to the surface. I don't want to soak it up with a sponge. It doesn't smell particularly bad. So I'm not concerned that I'm not wearing a respirator. Not in a closed garage that I'm in right now, so plenty of airflow. You know, this sponge is pretty easy to use. I have never done this with a sponge before. And I have to say, it's pretty easy. I can already see I'm putting too much on up here, which is fine. I'll just spread it around. I'm going in straight strokes. That's what I found the best, no circles. I don't think it matters which direction the strokes are in, as long as it's uniform. And it's real easy to see if you've missed a spot, because it's going to be dull. See the difference? Now, it's not going to dry quite this shiny, but you get the idea. Here's a good shot right down the middle. That's the difference. So I'm going to keep going. Occasionally, you'll see small air bubbles from using the sponge rather than a brush. That'll work themselves out. Partway done the hood, and you can really see the difference. Straight back and forth, went along the bottom, and I'm looking for runs. I don't see any so far, but sometimes it takes a few minutes to run, so you really got to watch after it. Now I'm going to continue with the rest of the hood. Every few minutes, do a run check. This stuff is crafty. The runs are really hard to spot. Don't wait until you're done to check for runs. I'm really concerned right here. I put it on real thick, not purposely, but so far I don't see anything. This is water. Not good. It's coming out of here. I thought I had completely dried that out. So I have to stop and clean that up before I go any further. But you can see right here at the top, maybe you can, maybe you can't. Right here, there's almost a run forming. And I've got to get to that ASAP because I did that part first. So I'm just going to hit it with the sponge. Let's see how that works out. So I've got the sponge here, and it's not quite a run, but it's super thick. And I'm just, oh, here's a little run right here. You probably can't see that in the camera, but trust me, it's here. And I'm just taking the sponge and working it through, and it removed it because I didn't wait too long. So that looks cool now. So I don't see any other runs here at all. Okay, now I've got to finish. This stuff is messy, so I'll get back to you when I'm done. As you're applying this, you'll feel the reason I wanted it smoother. The sponge works way better on a smooth surface. It doesn't drag. And it would really have dragged if I left the finish the way it was with the raised rust. Finished. I've been all over the car. I don't see any runs. I'm not thrilled with how the hood came out. It just doesn't have the colors that I hoped. It was just too rusty. But the sides look great. The sides have all the color I wanted. And the trunk came out nice. I really laid it on thick, not purposely on the trunk. And I was careful and it didn't run. But I think the driver's side came out the best. It's just got so much color. It's got a bit of the blue, lots of green. I just think it came out the best. Now the shine that you see is not the shine that's going to be on it tomorrow morning. We'll come back and we'll look at what the shine looks like tomorrow morning. If you have a finish that is mostly paint, not mostly rust, it's going to look a lot nicer. That much is very clear to me. Like right here, look at that shine on that green. Whereas next to it, it's all rust. It's not as nice of a shine, particularly here. That doesn't look that great at all. But it's better than it was. So I'll check back with you in the morning. A couple of mishaps I had. I ended up tipping the bottle, the bottle, and spilled some. And then kicked the can, which I had on the floor, and spilled some. But even with that, less than half a can did this whole car, easily. So if a dope like me can do it, you can do it. And it doesn't take a lot of material. About to call it a night. It's approximately 2 hours after I finished. And I'd be real happy if it maintains this gloss overnight. This would be super cool. I don't know if it will, but it sure would be nice if it did. It looks good. I'm even liking the hood now a bit more. What I dislike the most about the hood is this section here, these half circles. I didn't do that. I don't know how that got like that. I guess it was from the previous paint job. And that is weird. Look at it. It stops almost like there was a piece of masking tape there. Can't really explain that. But I'm happy with it. And look at how nice it looks around this headlight compared to the way it was. We've got some bare metal there. It's completely sealed now, so that won't rust. And I have yet to find a run in it. Love the colors here. So here's to hoping it stays like this overnight. Like I say, I've never used a sponge, so I really don't know what it's going to look like in the morning. But I will get back to you then. I think it came out good. It's got a nice gloss to it without being too glossy. It's a relatively even finish given how different the surface is. If your surface is smooth across, it's going to be more uniform. But when you're dealing with pits like that, it's not going to be quite as uniform in how it looks. You notice that when you get over to the smoother areas, it really pops, it really comes out. The roof came out good, happy with that. I'm seeing it for the first time along with you all, so I don't see any runs. It'd be interesting to see what happened with the water on the other side that came out of that trim. Let's see. Yeah, it made a mess. So what do we have here? Okay, it just didn't dry, that's all. Okay, I think that'll dry now. So no big deal. So if you ever get any water on it, don't panic. This rear quarter looks really good. As luck would have it, unfortunately, at the front of the car, my shop lights are coming on, but they're blinking, and only the camera can pick it up, so I had to shut them off. I wish there was, like right here, it's pretty dark. But if I turn them on, it starts flickering in the camera. Not a single run in it. Love this door. This whole side, I love how it came out. Not loving this fender. And it's because it's not at all smooth. The pits in this surface are very deep. And it, of course, took some shine away. So to that end, I'm wondering if a second coat might help, particularly that fender, but would it give more shine to the whole vehicle? I don't know the answer to that. I've never heard of anyone using multiple coats of this stuff, but I'm going to try, and hopefully I don't mess it up. So you'll get to see what the results of a second coat are. I'm still going to use a sponge, so the application process will be the same. Right here where the water was, where the water dropped through, I just wiped it off and it seems to have dried just fine. All right, let's get started. All right, here we go. I suspect I'll have to be even more careful of runs this time. I'm using a paint cup. That milk bottle worked okay, but it made it hard to regulate what's on the sponge. It's harder to see. As you can imagine now, it's gloss over gloss. It's not gloss over flat. This is what we've got so far. Looks similar to the application I did before. A few more air bubbles this time. We're only partway through. I've done the roof, the trunk, and half the hood. I don't see any runs yet. Sometimes it takes a few minutes to run. I laid the trunk on a little too thick. You can see it here. So I need to watch that for runs. So far, none. Let's go over to the hood so you can see a before and after. Haven't done the fender yet. Have done the hood. Those are the two sides of the hood. Not a huge difference, but a noticeable difference. It'll be so interesting to see how this dries, to see if it gives any additional gloss to what I have now. Particularly on this fender, which the light shows it real well here. It's just not very glossy at all. Second coat is done. I've made 2 passes looking for runs. Runs are going to be your biggest enemy here. I found two, and I just spotted another one. So this is actually good news. I'm going to show you how to fix it. The runs are going to occur most likely anywhere gravity's working against you, especially on curves. So where was that run? Now I can't find it. Okay, it's right here, right there. And you may not be able to see it on camera, but to fix it, all I'm going to do is that. And it's gone. That's it. You don't need to add more product. You actually want to subtract a little product, and by using a sponge, it does that. Occasionally, you might see a little mist spot, and you just hit that with the sponge. Right here is a little mist spot. Right there. So I got that. The air bubbles have worked themselves out. That's nice. A little worried about that, but it's probably more about the temperature than the set being a second coat. It's cooler today. It's probably about 78. Whereas when I was painting the other night, it was a few degrees warmer. Looks a little uneven here. It may just be my eye. It's starting to dry, so you have to be careful hitting it with that sponge when it's starting to dry like this. The second coat is dry. Let's check it out. If you look through here, it definitely has more gloss on the second coat. This is really shiny right here. It's not like clear coat, but it's more so than it was. There's no runs in it. We go down to the back. I want to show you the trunk. Like right here. That is super glossy right here, the top of the trunk. I laid it on thick there, not purposely, just the way it was. And it came out more glossy. And lastly, I'd like to show you this. This section was why I did it a second time. And it was really kind of dull and not nice, but look at it now. I think that's as good as it's going to get. Given how pockmarked the surface is, it's like trying to get the moon to shine, but it's got a little bit of shine in it. So I'm super happy about that. So Christina looked at this piece and said, well, you didn't do that part. I actually did. And this is a real good example of where I prepped with sanding it first here and where I did not. That's really good indication of why I chose to sand it first, to just smooth out the rough spots. I think it made a big difference in how the final product came out. The latest price on this Penetrol at Lowe's is actually $15. I think that's the best investment I could make to protect this finish. I hope you enjoyed this. Even if you're not a patina fan, this is a nice way to protect your paint for a vehicle that's going to be stored outside, a parts car or whatever. If you liked it, give it a like, please. Consider subscribing. This channel we're putting some focus on to have more and more content. Thanks very much for watching. We'll see you again soon.